Hey class, this is Dr. Willis. I wanted to take this time to welcome you to Module 9. We are almost done with the course, and as you can tell, we only have 2 weeks left, and we're really on the downhill stretch. So I really want you to focus this week because this is the week of the big Module 9 paper. But first, I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you were able to relax, rest, get caught up on some work. Last week we kind of looked at your first your first source and your topic, kind of getting your overall idea and opinions about your initial thought process on your topic, and then your thought process after you've done a little research. So I'm excited about reading those papers, but really what I want to focus on in this announcement is the rubric for the final project. So what I'm going to do is take it step by step. The first part of the rubric is the problem statement. So what you want to do first is discuss your topic in detail, why you chose the topic, what it means to you, why it's important, why it's relevant, which is the next part of the rubric, the relevance. So the first part is the problem statement and then the relevance. Remember, you've already kind of done this. What you want to do is just make sure it's fine-tuned and make sure it's detailed. So you're starting off the paper by talking about the topic, talking about the problem, and talking about why it's relevant. So that's the first two pieces of the rubric. The next part is the research questions. Now, listen closely. You've already analyzed your first source. So what you want to do is simply plug that back into this paper. So everything from your first source, the research questions, if you remember the module we completed on research questions and methodologies, you're simply plugging that back in to this paper. So you've already done that for the first source, so all you do is plug that information into this paper. So what I like to tell students is simply do this. Whenever you start to talk about the research questions, you simply list the article across the page. List the article that you're about to start discussing. Then under that, title it research questions. Okay? Then under that, title it methodologies, and you simply go from rubric section to rubric section. So it's research questions, methodologies, results, conclusions, major themes, and gaps, argument. Okay, that's all for your first source. So you're going to go questions, questions, methodology, results, conclusion, themes, gaps, arguments. This is all for your first source. So I listed my source and I listed all those rubric columns or parts of the rubric. So that's for my first source. And once I finish that, I'm going to list my second source, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now remember, for the second source, we have not completed the analysis yet. So this is where most of your work is going to come in. So when I start my paper, remember, I'm going problem, my overall problem, what I'm researching, why I'm researching it, relevance, why it's relevant to my major, to society, etc. Right after I do that, I'm going to list my resource 1. I would title it resource 1 if I were you, and just simply start with the research questions, then the methodology, the results, conclusion, major themes, and then gaps. You want to do all that for your first source, and then you want to do all that for your second source. I want to make sure I'm very clear in doing that. This is a research analysis, and you're doing both of your sources. You've already done most of the work for your first source, so the bulk of the work has to come for the second source. But I want to make sure we get all those criteria. So on your paper, what I would do, I would simply have your first resource, and in bold black, I would list out research questions and talk about the research questions for the first source. Then my next section, I would highlight methodologies in bold. I would talk about the methods, or was it qualitative or quantitative? And then I would go to the results, conclusions, and I would follow that path. Okay, so do all that for your first source, and then do all that for your second source. Okay, and I'm trying to break this down as simple as possible so I can make sure we don't have any confusion. But in order to make sure you're clear and you're concise and that I can pick out every little detail, it's critical that you list out your source, then you start bolding each criteria from the rubric. All right. Now, what I really want you to pay attention to, because we may not have done this throughout the course, is the themes and the gaps in your research, in your resources. So what you want to do is simply highlight the major themes that stood out in each resource. So let's say, like for instance, I used to do a lot of research on athletic identity. So whenever I would do a section on themes, the major themes of my articles would be athletic identity in black males, and the fact that black males tend to have a greater athletic identity than other student athletes. So that would be some of my major themes. And then you want to talk about gaps in the research. What was missing? What could have been inputted in those resources to improve the article? And then the last criteria, and then your argument. Your major argument, this is for both articles. This is its own section. Your argument is simply your thoughts and ideas on the topic, on the resources. Why was it important? Why do you think the articles were on point? Why do you think they needed work? Etc. And really, that's all you're going to do for this final project. Now, it is a lengthy paper, and you really have to give it attention. But what I really want you to focus on is making sure you have all the criteria there. As I stated first, you want to start off your paper by talking about your topic, talk about the problem, talk about what you're researching, why it's important, why it's relevant. Okay. Then you're going to go into your analysis. You're going to analyze your first resource. So I would list that first article and then start talking about your research questions, your methods, your results, your conclusions, the themes, the gaps. Everybody got that? And after you do that for your first source, you want to do that for your next source. List out your second source and then start over. Research questions, methods, results, conclusions. All right. I hope I explained that well. I wanted to get that out in a very easy way. But if you have questions, please reach out. But I'll know if you watch the video by your paper. So please don't submit without watching this video. Okay? All right. Now this paper is going to be due Sunday by 11:59. Remember, we don't have any discussion board this week. But you can send me questions. Please send me questions if you have them. What I'm going to try to do, I'll try to do a live webinar later in the week, but we already have one. But if you feel that's necessary, I'll try to do one. But please, please, please make sure you have watched this video. Watch it several times if you need to before you submit that paper. Okay? All right. And that's going to be due Sunday by 11:59. All right. Have a great day. Bye-bye.